Peace and welcome to POP. Picking up punches. It's your boy Sergio and I'm my man, the God, the Yiddish God, my doggy dog, Derek Drescher. What's happening, Daddy-O?
What's going on with you, Pop? How you feeling?
I'm a little drained. Marathon training, as you know, because you drew out the plan for me. It's kicking my ass. And I'll be honest with you. I don't want to do it.
Yo, I feel you on that.
I don't want to do it.
Only crazy people want to do marathons. You seem very level-headed, but you're going to do it. It's the 50th New York City Marathon. It's a big one. This is a big one. Big medal. I wish I could be in it. I'm glad you're doing it. But the thing that's funny the other day is you messaged me and said, I'm just not going to do my long run this week. That's okay, right? And I said, absolutely not. That is not okay. I said, do you want to finish a marathon or do you want to run a marathon? And you want to run a marathon, right?
That is correct.
You got to get all your steps in. Time on feet, baby. Time on feet.
Yeah, I'm always, when I have a run, I'm reminded that it's like, it's the analogy of life, right? It's a lot of shit that is coming into play that I don't want to deal with, but you just got to keep on pushing and moving forward. So I hope that what the lessons that I'm getting from this training apply to other areas in my life.
Oh, it will.
Because right now, it's a little torturous. And you know what? The fact of the matter is no one cares.
Nobody gives a shit.
No one cares. This is about me. It's a selfish endeavor, and it's a little annoying.
Your family supportive?
No. The last time I ran it, I walked in on my daughter laying on her belly with her feet crossed, playing Tetris, a game she doesn't even like, after I ran 26 miles.
No congratulations?
Yeah, I mean, she looked over at me and I was annoying her. So that's hardly a congratulations. My wife had food waiting for me. It wasn't a home cooked meal.
Good woman.
But it was a dirt bag collection of different types of food all in one platter.
From a cookout?
Platter. Oh, no, from the Colombian food. You know how they get down.
Oh, yeah.
A Colombian platter is like eggs, chicharron, avocado, rice and beans.
Chicken.
I don't think there's any chicken, but there's also
cocaine.
Basically, it's a concoction of different foods that really inspire one to shit themselves.
Yo, yeah, it slid right out, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was that was.
Did you wear your name on your shirt your first marathon?
No, because I have it tattooed on my forearm already.
Do you really?
Because I'm a dirtbag.
Yeah, but no one could read that shit.
You have a tattoo on your belly.
I do have my name across my belly.
And we may have covered this on a previous episode, but the fact of the matter is, we're New York City trash.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, we're New York City dirtbags, and let it be known that we want people to recognize who they're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Our government is tattooed on our body. And you know, Derek, you've been involved in criminal activity. Why would you do that? Why would you tattoo your last name on your belly? Because most of the crimes you committed, everyone knows, were shirtless.
Yes, I was picked up
and
without a shirt.
And across your abdominal area, you have your tattooed.
Many times. And a lot of times when the cops arrested me, if I had a shirt on, I would no longer have a shirt by the time I was brought to the precinct. I used to go see the judges, and they'd be like, where's his shirt? Get him a shirt. Yeah, and then they would give me a shirt and then whoop my ass again. But I've always thought as long as if I wore a shirt and no one could see my tattoos with the shirt on, I was good money. Because if I wear a short sleeve shirt, nobody could tell I have tattoos, even though I'm covered in ink. I'm covered in it.
Yeah.
Gang affiliation. Things like that. Things of such a nature. If you get what I'm saying. But if you wear your name on your shirt during the marathon, people will call out to you. Go, Sergio, go. Go, Sergio,
I guess to inspire me and to encourage me.
Because listen.
I don't need it. I don't need it.
Your last marathon was not something to write home about. You finished the marathon. That's actually something to be proud about. But you have a goal. You started training late, but you've caught up. You know, I've created a great plan to preserve your 42-year-old body through training so it does not break down by the day that you get to the start line. Because I'm a professional, and I have about 100 marathoners that have completed under my tutelage. Right? I do this for a living. You know what I mean? I've run 4 marathons myself, plus 3 ultras. All right, this was a year after getting clean. So I'm a monster when it comes to this. I know about all of it. Hurt knees, toenails falling off, all that shit. Don't mean nothing to me. Yeah, and it don't mean nothing to the race either.
I have a soft toenail. It's just wet all the time. What does that mean? It's just wet like a sponge.
I think you got to go to the podiatrist, Pop.
Yeah, I mean, it lifts.
So
I got a
what's
drop top
happening
nail.
is there's another toenail growing underneath that nail.
Yeah.
You should rip it off.
Every time I lift, it goes.
Does it smell a little bit when you lift it? Oh, it makes that sound?
It goes.
Yeah.
Like you're entering, some good stuff.
Yeah. They don't know about that. Do they know? Some of them might.
Yeah, so
you got to rip that toenail off.
Yeah, the toenail's looking crazy. Bunions
So
are
do you see
flaring
the
up.
difference in the way you're training for this marathon and the last one?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's different is the fact that I got a late start. And I
Right.
think that's actually helping preserve my body because I feel stronger and I feel more efficient. I'm just a little bored with the runs. So if you can provide me with a playlist.
No, I can't. If I was you, I would run without music.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. So then you called me the other day and you said to me, I'm not gonna run. Is that okay? Like you thought I would co-sign that shit, which is insane. Now let me ask you a question. POP, picking off punches. We love boxing, right? Do you think Ali ever told Bundini Brown, "Hey, I'm gonna take off today"? Is that all right?
Yeah, I mean, Ali is built differently. I'm looking for $400 running sneakers. He ran in combat boots. For what? Like, why would he do that?
Because he was a monster. That's why.
Dude, it's obnoxious.
Fighters who do not do their road work, and this is 110% truth, they do not do their road work, they usually lose if they half-ass their road work. We can even go back and look at Jermaine Taylor versus Kelly Pavlik. He would not run on the road. He did his road work on a treadmill. You're not out in the elements. It's different. You're running in like a controlled, like good feeling environment with the AC on you. And
yeah.
Kelly, once the heat got turned up, Kelly Pavlik put him to sleep.
Running on a treadmill is not the same. It's like a 40% difference.
If you want to, if you're doing it just to get in shape,
you're watching
great.
The View.
Yeah. I would love to see somebody train for an outdoor marathon only on a treadmill and see how that turns out. I would just like to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people have run marathons on treadmills.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's insane. That's insanity.
And these marathons, like every community of people just has annoying people. There's gonna be somebody who bear crawls the marathon. There's one of those.
An idiot wearing a lobster suit.
Yeah.
I want to punch those guys.
Yeah. How about the guy who wears this stuff, a three-piece suit? Like, look at me.
Yeah, wingtips.
Yeah.
Bozos. Making everybody shitting on everybody else's accomplishments. All right, we get it. You want attention.
Yeah, I just want to
pregnant women, go sit down. Relax. What's the matter with you? Jesus. What's your husband doing? How would you let your pregnant wife run a marathon? They got those stupid ass shirts with the feet on them. Get out of here. Fucking babies dropping on the course.
Yeah, and marathoners have annoying bodies. They look like blow pops because they lose every piece of muscle on their body. So now my view is gonna be of a bunch of soupy asses.
Soupy asses, bro. But you're gonna look funny out there because you're like muscular. You're aging backwards.
I have a long torso and short legs.
Long torso,
my body's not meant for running.
And your head is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So you're gonna run it bald or wearing a hat?
No, I'm wearing a hat.
You gotta wear a hat, right?
Yeah.
That sun will get you. That sun and that soul. All right. This episode, we're going to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about in the whole world, a very violent event, which is called Riot, between Andrew Galata, Riddick Bowe, 1996, I believe.
Interesting year.
Great year. Tupac died and so did Biggie.
I know, man.
And we had the Riot.
Sad year.
And we had the Riot. If people don't know, the fight was a barn burner. A barn burner. For some of it, actually, no, Galata was just whooping his ass the whole time. That's what was happening. The second one was a barn burner. And
interesting to me, there's always controversy surrounding Galata.
Oh, bro, he worked for like the Polish mafia when he lived in Poland.
You said it.
Yeah.
I didn't say it.
I said it. I know what it is.
Was he from Chicago?
That's what was a big Polish diaspora. Did I say that correct?
Diaspora? You could have just said community.
Diaspora? Yeah, there's a big
This
Polish
guy's
diaspora
using his word of the day that you have emailed to you.
In Chicago, that he got caught up, that he moved in with. You gonna get him where you fit in. You know what I mean? He came over here. He fought some guys, bit a guy on the shoulder, ended up getting a fight.
And the Polish colors are red and white, right?
Red and white.
And the thing is, when you have a heavyweight wearing like red and white trunks, they look like a freaking box of popcorn just moving around the ring.
He looked like a big square.
Yeah.
That's what he looked like. He looked like if SpongeBob was a person. That's
Right.
He just looked like a big square.
Like a refrigerator.
The thing is that people didn't know about Galata, and we saw that night that big man could box.
Mm.
And later in his career, we all know that he was his own worst enemy. But we're going to be speaking to Curran Bhatia about this. He's well versed in boxing.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's bring on the man, Curran. You say Curran? I say Curran. We're going to ask our dude what's the correct pronunciation of his name. Because my name is Sergio, not Sebastian, so all you dirtbags out there. I've been brought up on stage as Sebastian Chico, but it's no longer about me. Without further ado, Curran Bhatia.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How are you?
How you doing?
Doing well. I got your name correct, right? Bhatia?
Yeah, Curran Bhatia.
Oh, Bhatia.
Bhatia, let it flow.
Yeah, I gotta let it flow.
Let it flow.
Curran
I think with New Yorkers,
Bhatia.
we like to pronounce stuff more. You
Yeah,
know what
put
I
a lot
mean?
of emphasis on the
Like Jimmy Garoppolo, I call him Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what I call him.
Who's that?
He's a quarterback for the NFL.
I should know this. I have a Raiders hat on all week long. You're a Raiders fan? Interesting season for them. I'm like, nah. They match my sneakers.
There you
Most
go.
important.
I hear that, man. I'm a suffering Jets fan, so
Oof.
that's where I'm at right now.
I'm a Lions fan, so none of us are. They're probably going
Yeah.
to go 0-16 again this year. That's how we're looking.
At least you get a good draft pick.
Yeah.
Curran, I appreciate you joining us. So on POP, Picking Off Punches, what we do, we highlight boxes, historic boxing figures. But in this case, we thought it would be dope to have you on because you're so savvy across the board and highlight the 96 riot that took place against Galata and Bo.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, Madison Square Garden, 1996. Riddick Bowe versus Andrew Galata. It was a crazy time, and I think also what was interesting was just the racial tensions that really kind of played a part in that. One thing, even before we get into it, one comment that always stood out to me when I think about that, Jim Lampley said, you knew who everyone was rooting for and they didn't have to wear jerseys, right? And I think that's part of it is just the kind of the way the crowd was split, and then eventually, of course, what happened that night.
Yeah. I remember I watched that fight with my father, and you could tell
You were involved in the riots.
I was not.
There's footage of you.
I was only 15 years old.
Yeah, that's how you got your start. The 12th time you were locked up was the age of 15. He has a long history, longer than Manute Bo, Big L line, MVP.
And the thing that because Bo, I'm trying to remember who was Bo coming off of. Was it coming off of who did he just fight?
Bo fought Evander Holyfield right before these two fights with
for the
Galata.
third time, right?
Yeah, and the only loss actually in Bo's career, I believe, was the second time he fought Holyfield.
Right.
And then he was able to get revenge. But my understanding is, Holyfield was a little bit older at that time. But at the same time, the reason that they picked Galata for Bo was that the assumption was that Galata was good, but not too good, so Bo could have success against him. And I think when that fight started, a lot of people were like, wow, Galata's doing his thing. He's working behind the jab. He's having success. And I think, people were pretty impressed from what they were seeing from Galata, who was the younger man that night.
Yeah, Bo came in a little heavy, right, for Galata. I think one of the famous lines.
Bo was also the first guy to beat Holyfield. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. I can look that up.
At that time,
I think so. I think he handed Holyfield his first loss.
He handed and he was also the first guy to knock Holyfield out in the third fight. He knocked him out. And Ho lost against Michael Moore, I believe, after he got the title back from Bo in the second fight.
Yeah, and I do believe Bo was the first man to defeat Holyfield. And to your point about Bo, I think that was an issue a lot of people had in terms of his training, right? He would gain a lot of weight between fights, 50, 60 pounds. And obviously as a heavyweight, you don't have to weigh in. You don't have to make a specific weight. You don't have to cut. So that's more easy to do. But it's obviously not a good thing. I mean, you look at fighters who have success in the game. For example, like a Floyd Mayweather looked like he was always in shape. Manny Pacquiao is known for the crazy training regimen. You never saw him gaining a ton of weight between fights. I mean, for most fighters, it seems like if you want to have success, you want to stay in shape I still remember when Andre Ward fought Kovalev, the next morning he posted a selfie in the gym. And I was like, that's dedication, man.
Yeah.
You just went through this long training camp. You just fought this beast of, this great fight. And now you're back in the gym the next morning. I mean, that's kind of the dedication that we want from our fighters, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of Ward and Kovalev, I want to ask, did you think that Ward won that first fight?
I have to go back and score round by round. I'll tell you this. When the first few rounds, it looked like Ward didn't even belong in that ring. I remember Kovalev knocked him down, which was shocking. Ward had been knocked down before, but still shocking to see someone as technically skilled as Ward going down. And I give him credit because he kept himself in the fight. If you remember in the corner, Virgil Hunter's trainers talked about other great fighters who had gotten up from knockdowns to come back to win. So the motivation was there. So, to answer your question, I'd have to go back and score it round by round. I do remember it being a really close fight, and I definitely remember Kovalev having a ton of success. It's like so many of these fights, man. Like, for example, Canelo and Triple G, the first one. It was such a close fight. You really have to score these round by round. Because a lot of people, you guys know this, they watch these fights, they're like, oh, I kind of felt like it was a draw. It's like, okay, well, what'd you score round by round? Like, oh, no, I just kind of felt like it was a draw. It's like, no, that's not how boxing scoring works,
You know what you don't see much of anymore? I feel like you don't see enough 10-10 rounds.
In terms of a draw in a round, yeah. I mean, judges are able to use that. I agree with you. I think that there's just some rounds that are just too close to call. So if you feel that way, nothing wrong with giving it a 10-10.
Absolutely.
So yeah, no, I agree with you there for sure.
All right, back to your point about, I just want to highlight this. Virgil Hunter's speech to Ward, that gave me goosebumps because he let him, it was real and it was inspiring. And I think he really dug in from that.
I mean, Ward made no doubt about it in the second fight. He knocked him out.
Absolutely.
He knocked him out.
Oh, awesome. Certainly, yeah. And to your point about, I mean, the trainer, we talk about what trainers can do for fighters. Is it the fighter? Is it the trainer? But the motivational element is always there. Like, there's been so many great cases, even in recent history. Of course, Teddy Atlas trying to motivate Tim Bradley is we are firemen is always an interesting one. And even more recently, Sugar Hill Stewart was in the corner for Tyson Fury against Wilder, and he did a great job motivating Tyson Fury. He, of course, learned from the great Emmanuel Stewart, who I was lucky enough to work with, who was another brilliant motivator. And he's the one who told Lennox Lewis, "Yeah, you got a dead man in front of you," when he was fighting Mike Tyson, and Lewis eventually knocked him out after that.
I love that he goes, the man don't want to fight no more. Get him out of there. You're gonna get caught with some shit, man. I love that exchange they had.
That was great.
With him, yeah.
But back to your point with Teddy Atlas and Tim Bradley, that was a great speech because Teddy Atlas is a talker. The only thing is, he was beating Rios' ass. There was no reason for that.
He wanted him to get the knockout.
That's what it was. I was just like, it reminded me of when I was in Pee Wee League and we were winning 12-zip, and I huddled up with my catcher with the next bat. Like, you don't need to huddle. We're winning this shit. Like, you didn't need the extra.
The thing that I loved about Teddy is if the fighter that he was working with at the time was into what he was doing, like he did it with Alexander Povetkin, also talking to him about, we could bring your father back for one night, because he was having a rough time with Ruslan Chagov, and he ended up stepping on the gas and winning that fight. So
it's interesting to your point about when you should motivate your fighter. Another one that I always thought was interesting was Pacquiao versus Marquez the fourth time. Now, eventually, we know Pacquiao got knocked out, right, in the sixth round. Everyone knows, seen him falling flat on his face. But in the fifth round, Pacquiao was actually having a lot of success. He knocked down Marquez, and that's a time where you would think that Freddie would be like, not congratulating Pacquiao, but being like, all right, you're doing the right thing. If you watch the between rounds, that's actually when Freddie gets most angry and most motivating Pacquiao, and he said, move your head. You need to move your head. He was like really, kind of tearing him apart there, even after a successful round. So, great trainers have obviously different ways of handling things in the corner.
And Riddick Bowe had one of the greatest trainers of all time, which was Eddie Futch. And I believe Eddie Futch once said he had a hard time motivating Bowe. Is that true? Did you hear that also?
Yeah. And obviously a really, really great trainer, Eddie Futch. We were talking about Teddy Atlas. Teddy Atlas had a similar challenge with Michael Moorer, right? It's it's tough if your fighter's the one who's not motivated. We talked about Freddie Roach a couple times. He talked about when he was training Chavez Jr. and Freddie would be at the gym and Chavez Jr. Was nowhere to be found at the time. So, I mean, it's obviously hard it's hard. Training a fighter is hard enough. If your fighter doesn't want to be there, that's going to make it so much harder.
Yeah, and that's why Bo had that big weight gain. The media questioned him about it before the fight with Galata. They said, "How's your training been going?" And he said, "How do you train for a bum?"
Yeah, disrespectful.
Yeah, that's never good. I mean, it's whatever fighters need to do to motivate themselves. Some fighters need something like that.
So, July 11th, 1996.
1996, that was my year. I was 18 years
15.
old. I had one tattoo of a lion head right here and my name right here. I thought I was Tupac Shakur.
I had the Caesar. The ill Caesar haircut.
Curran, how old were you in 1996?
I was 10 years old in 96.
Oh, man, just a youngin'. Were you watching fights back then?
I wasn't watching this one, but I was always interested in fights. I think we all were, especially at that time. It was, how many people do you talk to nowadays and they're like, oh man, I miss like those days of like, the great heavyweights and Tyson and things like that, right? It feels like it was a fun time.
It was so fun. So fun. I just remember watching all those fights with my father, like sitting by he had a lazy boy, and I'd sit like when Spinks fought Tyson. I remember my father being like, "What? This is the night somebody gives Tyson a run for the money." And then I was like, "What happened to your guy?" But anyway,
he slammed the door.
He was upset. So they go into this fight. Galata basically an unknown. Bo, was undisputed champion at one time from beating Holyfield, basically looking to get back into the title picture. And what they don't know is they have this Polish monster on their hands, basically. And a lot of people don't know this. Galata was famous for his fouling, but he bit a guy in the ring before him fouling Bo was in his first ordeal with like getting or getting points deducted. He bit, I think, Samson Pahua. Do you know the guy I'm talking?
He bit someone. I'm not sure who, and then he also headbutted someone, I believe, as well. So I mean, it's kind of like the famous Mike Tyson phrase, right? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. When things get crazy in there, how do you respond? And we've seen fighters who respond well through adversity, and we've seen fighters like, for example, Victor Ortiz against Floyd Mayweather, right? Things got tough in there, and he started trying to headbutt him, and then of course the hit and the break after, but. It's all about how people respond, and obviously Galata does not necessarily respond well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, yeah. What's interesting about the Galata fight, though, he was winning.
He was winning easy.
Yeah, and to foul.
When he was out jabbing Bo big time. You could tell Bo wasn't in shape to keep the pace of the fight.
So why would he foul?
You know what? Bo still has, he's got heavy hands. He probably got cracked a few times, I would imagine, and then decided to start hitting low. Is that what you think, Curran?
I mean, so I think Galata was definitely having success. He was working behind the jab. He was doing his thing. And if you look at the scorecards at the time of the stoppage, Galata was ahead on all the scorecards, 67 to 66, 67 to 65. So he was definitely winning the fight. And I think a lot of people were, surprised by that. In terms of why would you start going to the low blows? I mean, it could be a combination of things. Boxing, as much of a physical thing it is, there's also a mental component. And if you're, depending on what's going through your head at that moment, even if maybe you're having success, maybe it's hard for you to process that you're having success. It could be a physical thing where, fatigue sets in and now your punches that were hitting the belt line are just going lower because you're more tired. And I think that obviously helped Bo out because he got the DQ win instead of what would have most likely been a loss. Even in Bo's words, he knows that he was getting beat that night. And then that led to the crazy aftermath and the overall riot in Madison Square Garden that night.
So if he doesn't hit him low and he doesn't get the points deducted, he's basically pitching a shutout because he's going to be up 69-66 on one scorecard. So he's whooping Bo, right? Points get deducted. 7th round comes. He hits him low again. They stop the fight.
Maybe his training regimen at home was hitting kids, and that's why he went low. Bang!
I knew a lot of Polish guys from Brooklyn back in the day, and they told me.
We got some insight from the culture.
That Andrew Galata was an enforcer for underworld figures in Poland. I don't know if that's
You're
true.
not getting me involved in that mob talk. Karan, you don't have to speak on that if you don't want.
I'm gonna stay away from that too, man.
So they were like, yo, this guy is a bad guy. Like,
Who said?
People I know.
So you can't trust guys who wear fur during the interviews, man. He knows all types of inside, underground, dark worlds.
So when the riot happened, because all right, now we got to get into Rock Newman, who we're also we're interviewing him next week. But Rock Newman, very, very protective of Riddick Bowe. I saw him grab a fighter and pull him over the top rope one time. Henry Tillman versus Riddick Bowe.
What was Rock Newman's role in that? I forget. I'm getting
Rock
old.
Newman was Bowe's manager, I
Manager,
believe.
right?
Right?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, correct.
I think they were hitting Galata in the head with the walkie-talkie or with the radio.
Brooklyn was in abundance, right?
Yeah, man. They were in Brownsville. It was definitely in the building. And not only did...
That's a couple of stops away.
But so this fight happens in the ring, and then it spills over into the crowd. And basically what happens is like a race riot. It's like blacks versus the Polish. That's basically what happened.
Yeah, that's the comment I was, Jim Lampley's comment. You knew who was on everyone's team without the jerseys. It was definitely racial. It was tribal. And to your point, I mean, I think a lot of fans probably came in from Brooklyn rooting for Bowe, and then you had these Polish fans. And we've all been at the fights. We know how fans can get. You get a couple drinks in you're rooting for your guy, and then something like this crazy happens. You didn't necessarily get your money's worth. You're probably not happy. And then it was just like a wildfire, man. It started in the ring, and then it just spread. My old boss at HBO was Ross Greenberg. He was the producer at the time for this show. And he went into Jim's ear at the end and he said, just give us a personal comment, take us off the air. And Jim said the first thing he thought of was, my daughter's in here. And that's what he said on air. He said, for me, I have a 16-year-old daughter and I'm looking to make sure she's safe. So you can only imagine what that's like, knowing that your own, flesh and blood is in this building and this riot's going on and you have no idea where they are and you can't contact them.
The last time I seen something that out of control was in 1996. The Latin Kings came into the Copa. And they ranged from the age of 6 to 66.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I crossed the street. I said, I think it's time for me to go home. I tucked my little chain in my turtleneck, and I was out.
Well, how old were you at that time? You were 14, 15
I was
years old.
43. I was like 15, 16.
And you look at, I mean, that they ended up fighting again that December. That December they fought again. And you know what's wild? You look at some guys just have it's like almost like a black cloud following them around for their career. And, some of it is brought on to them by themselves, but you had like the Fan Man incident with Bowe. His guys beat them up, and then you had the fight with Galata and his guys. I mean, just they raised complete hell. And after that fight, both of their careers, neither one of them ever matched up to what their potential was, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that Galata's training for the rematch, and it's one of the funniest things I've seen. Lou Duva, his trainer, literally put like trunks on a heavy bag to say hit above here, and it's like. For you mentioned it was in December of that year. So the first fight in July, second fight in December. I'm sure the entire training camp, all he's thinking about is don't hit low. And then he goes into the second fight. He's winning the second fight on the scorecards. And what does he do? He hits low again and just gives it away. And it's just something that only happens in boxing, man. It's so bizarre. It's so crazy. And it's just, boxing, we call boxing the theater of the unexpected. And it's just so crazy that you get DQ'd the first time, you come back and do it again. And in terms of, where their careers went, I mean, Bowe hadn't, he kind of retired. He said he was going to go into the Marine Corps, I believe it was.
Right. And then Galata, I just remember him getting starched by Lennox Lewis. And I think Michael Grant beat him too.
Even when he fought Tyson, he quit with Tyson.
He quit. He was beating Michael Grant too.
And they were throwing slushies at him.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got his nose broken, quit.
Yeah, his reward for after these DQs was to get Lennox Lewis. He got knocked out in the first round, and then he had some more fights, and then he ended his career on 3 losses. So it's unfortunate. Obviously, both of their careers and paths were altered that night in 1996 based on what happened. And yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate.
And that wasn't
like
the first
I said, it's the theater of the
riot.
unexpected. I mean, that's boxing.
Well, remember Mayweather and Zab Judah? That could have been a riot. And Floyd should have been DQ'd for that because Roger walked in the ring. You're not supposed to walk in the ring.
Yeah,
Like, they
anytime
gave him a
if your
pass.
trainer comes in the ring, it's there's supposed to be a disqualification.
Yeah, but
unless it's in between
that could have
rounds,
been
yeah.
real. I'm glad they didn't do that.
I mean, it was Vegas, though.
Yeah.
Those people aren't going to riot.
that was another, you know, we were talking about fighters and you know, mentally, you know, being strong and things like that. Zab Judah was having success against Mayweather. He backed up Mayweather. First 4 rounds, he was doing his thing. And then to your point, that almost led to like a mini riot. It's crazy that the fight continued after that. And after that happened, and yeah, to your point, if the trainer gets up there or gets in the ring or anything like that, it's supposed to be a DQ. I guess they wanted to use, you know, maybe common sense thinking versus like maybe exactly by the book.
You know what?
But yeah,
I'm
that
just
was
gonna say
that was
this,
another
'cause,
crazy one as well.
He never got credit for it. Like the referee didn't call it a knockdown, but Zab Judah did knock down Floyd Mayweather.
Oh,
in that
absolutely.
fight. His glove touched the canvas.
Well, yeah. So the thing about Floyd is the one thing that he had issue was his hands, right? He had kind of the brittle hands, which is why later on his career is much more like technical style, defensive, and not like necessarily knocking people out. And so if it was winning gloves are known to have more padding around the knuckles. And so that is probably the reason if they were winning gloves. And yeah, if you watch the replay, he stumbles back. And if any part of your body besides the bottom of your shoes touches the canvas, that's supposed to be a knockdown. So I don't think they had instant replay back then. And even now with instant replay, I mean, it's still kind of iffy the way they use it. Sometimes they screw it up. It's not like the NFL where they have like a really good system for replay. But it would be nice if they implemented that in boxing.
And then another race riot, I believe, or riot, and this was a race riot, I believe, was when Jack Johnson won the heavyweight title. You know, either one of you know about that?
I know Jack Johnson, man. He wore gold teeth and dated a bunch of white women. He was a G back in the 20s.
Who'd he beat,
Was it
Willard?
the 20s?
Who did he knock out?
40s? I don't know, man. That's black and white footage.
I'm telling.
That's crackly footage.
That's
That's what reporters talk like this. And here comes he hits him on the left and the right.
I think they rioted across the country when Jack Johnson won.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that when he was fighting, you know, so, you know, in the 1900s and the, you know, the teens and stuff, I mean, obviously things were so different back then. And so, you know, if you have someone having success, there's going to be people who are not happy about it. And obviously that's going to, you know, spark those racial tensions for sure.
He beat Jim. I think he knocked out Jim Jeffries. It was Independence Day.
And he was a showboater too.
Jack Johnson, from everything I've seen about him, yeah, he liked to play. He was.
Well, I think more just like, this is what I'm doing. I'm gonna, you know, during these times, he dated a lot of white women. He wore gold teeth. He flashed his money.
He dressed really nice too.
Yeah, tailored suits.
Nice. Yep, tailored suits. And he was a step above everybody.
They fought like this back in the days, right?
Yeah, but
like
he used
that.
to actually, if you watch
knew how to
I've
move.
seen old footage of him. Yeah, he moved.
Horsehair gloves.
Yep.
And he hit him on the left. And everyone smoked cigarettes and had derbies on and arrived to the fights on horses.
Boxing was different back then, man. Boxing was.
They fought 120 rounds a fight.
And there was 100,000 people at fights.
Yeah, they have 4-ounce gloves.
It's crazy, man. People don't know that they used to just keep fighting until there was a winner.
That's
There's
crazy.
some fights that went insane amount of rounds. And the other thing that was crazy back then is they used to fight all the time. Like you would fight like every few weeks sometimes. And it's just wild, like to imagine that today, you know, the big fighters only fight like, you know, once or twice a year. So it's wild to think about how active they were back then.
I wish boxing was still big enough to where they could fight in stadiums again. Because I remember just like looking, like, you know, going through the history
They
of
fight in
boxing.
stadiums.
Yeah, but Yankee Stadium. I mean, yeah, there has been a few fights. I think Pacquiao fought in the
Miguel Cotto fought Yuri
Yeah,
Foreman in
Cotto
Yankee
fought Yuri
Stadium.
That's
Foreman.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot.
That was a big one. I was there for that. Cotto versus Yuri Foreman. That was a good night at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, that was another interesting finish to a fight. That was
He
a little
blew his
bizarre
knee
as well.
out, Yuri Foreman, right?
He blew his knee, and then the referee kind of was like, you know, I think you're okay. I think you can keep going. And then there was a towel thrown in. They weren't sure who threw the towel in, so they kept the fight going another round. At the end of the day, Cotto, you know, the right guy won. So, yeah, but that was, you know, there's just so many bizarre endings in boxing, as we know.
There was a fight where the towel was thrown in and the referee threw the towel back.
Right.
What fight was that?
That was one where he didn't know where the towel came from, so he kind of just ignored it.
That was Arthur McCanty Jr., right?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And he, you know, that's where he was kind of like, "Suck it up, champ. You're fine." It's like, well, okay, you know. I've been talking about like fighter safety. I think that if a fighter doesn't want to continue, or you're getting those signs, it's probably the right thing to do to stop a fight. I'd rather stop it too early than too late. But there's also caveats to that. If you look at someone like Deontay Wilder, for example, Wilder said, first of all, he said, I want a body on my record. That was one of his goals. And the other thing is, he's someone who wants to go out on his shield, no matter what happens. He doesn't want a referee or anyone to stop a fight for him. His trainer stopped it in the second Fury fight, and he fired him. It's interesting to see fighters' mentalities. It's different for each fighter.
Well, he got what he wanted the last fight. He went out on his shield. I mean, he stayed in there until the end. What a great fight! How did you feel about that third fight that they had?
That was an amazing trilogy, man. And the thing that really did it for that third fight was, so many times sports fans, mainstream fans tune into boxing and they're kind of disappointed. And it's like, oh, this is why I don't watch boxing, like whatever. That lived up to the hype. It was better than we even hoped. These guys are trading knockdowns. They're heavyweights. I mean, they had every possible storyline, US versus UK, and these guys were larger than life. And you just gotta, you gotta tip your cap to Fury, man. But it's crazy to me that in that rivalry, Fury has been knocked down twice in 2 fights in that rivalry, and he's never lost in that rivalry. So it's crazy. It's a great fight.
Yeah, that is. The third fight I was watching with my friends right before Deontay landed that right hand that put Fury down. We looked at each other, and I was like, yeah, this is starting to look like it's not even fair, because Fury was doing such a wonderful job boxing, and Deontay lands that right hand. And I didn't think Fury was going to get up. That's the thing about the heavyweights, man. One punch. Yeah, I tip my hat to Fury for climbing off the
Fury
canvas.
has so much in his arsenal. I mean, even the way he closed the distance, that he like bend a little bit and then came with that right hook. That's like, you don't see a lot of heavyweights do that. I mean, the way he closed in through that hook, that shit was dope.
For his size, he can box and move. And then what he realized with Wilder is, because the first fight was a draw and it was pretty close, he realized that, hey, if I just bulk up, I can just be the bigger man. And I mean, that's something good to have in your arsenal, that you can kind of go both ways, have different styles. And that's almost like what it seems like people want to see from Anthony Joshua, because Anthony Joshua, after he lost to Ruiz, he came back and kind of reinvented himself as more of a smooth boxer, kind of working behind the jab and moving. And then he got outboxed by Usyk now. And in a way, it seems like people are maybe calling for like the tougher, angrier Anthony Joshua. It's like, well, now that in this fight with Usyk, going into the rematch, you are the bigger man. Use that size. So we'll see what happens in that rematch. That's another really interesting rematch. But we'll see if Joshua can kind of try to impose himself as the bigger man in that one.
Losing to Usyk, I mean, the old saying is a good big man beats a good small man. But I mean, losing to Usyk, hopefully he got some kind of rub from it, just like when Canelo lost to Mayweather. I mean, he lost to a guy that had, how many amateur fights did Usyk have?
It's over 300,
yeah,
right?
I mean, Usyk knows how to box, so hopefully Joshua.
He fought a perfect match. I mean, he was slipping and punching. He was moving
combinations.
Well. Yeah, I see Usyk beating him again. I just think Joshua is too rigid, too like. He stands up too straight and tall. I don't know if he could change that. And I'm not sure if he has that meanness in him that he did when he fought the Klitschko. I don't know, the Klitschko. He fought Vladimir.
Vladimir, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he
Vladimir,
has that.
Yeah, that was a brilliant fight where he came up, he got knocked down, he came up, he knocked down Vladimir, ended up winning by knockout. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see what will happen to Joshua. I mean, they say the definition of insanity is trying the same thing and expecting a different result. And you have to give Joshua credit, actually. He's been doing like a tour across America to find a new trainer. So he is making those adjustments. And if you hear him in interviews, he said, I'm sick of losing. I'm going to be that angry guy now. So when he lost to Ruiz the first time, he kind of went into the fortress of solitude, and he obviously trained very hard for that rematch. So I could see him maybe doing the same thing again. He's motivated. I think there's still a lot of fight left in him. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed Joshua. He was serious on that second Ruiz fight because he came without a haircut. I was like, oh, boy, this guy got a mini afro, no shape up. I was like, he was in the dungeon.
Let it grow.
So thank you for assisting us with the highlight of the 96 Riot. Moving forward, what's your opinion on the state of boxing right now? Who do you like? What would you like to see changes? Give us your insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting time in boxing. I think it's a really good time in boxing as well. Obviously, we talked about the heavyweights that are crushing. I feel like if there's top heavyweights doing their thing, that's always a good thing for the state of boxing. It's also, like I said, interesting because we have a lot of people from other walks of life now participating in boxing. We have ex-MMA fighters and UFC fighters. We have social media influencers. We have YouTubers. We have celebrities. They're all kind of coming to boxing right now, which I personally think is a great thing. I know people are very divided on this issue, but I've always said if you're a YouTuber, you've done a lot of work to build your audience, right? It takes a lot of work to create content and keep an engaged fan base. So I give credit to people from other walks of life doing that and then getting into boxing and having these big events. For example, someone like Jake Paul, one thing that people don't know is Jake Paul is allowing the fighters on the undercard to get a lot of exposure. They're gaining more followers. They're getting career high paydays just by being on the undercard, just by being involved. So to answer your question, man, the state of boxing, I think it's in a good spot right now because we have a lot of different platforms. We have a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. And there's, you could say there's something for everybody right now.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's a beautiful assessment on the state of boxing. I think you hit it right on the head. I think it does nothing but promote it across the board, and everyone who wants to get involved, the more the merrier. And you're right, a lot of people are being compensated. A lot of pro fighters are being compensated. People who think, there's fighters who think, I've been working this long and I don't got a payday like that. Well, you don't have the same following as Jake Paul, But if you find that undercard, which, the more these guys get the opportunities, the more they're going to see the opportunities.
But in terms of fighters, who are you fans of, and what are the fights that you guys are looking forward to?
I mean, I love watching Canelo just because he's just so good at what he does. I like Teofimo Lopez. And Inoue is my guy. I love watching him. He's such a monster.
Who's this?
Inoue, the Japanese fella.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, really, really, really good.
I enjoy. There's a lot of fighters I like now, but back when he was active, Cotto was my man. I enjoy Cotto because he was a boxer puncher. He could go upstairs and downstairs. He didn't talk shit, although I like shit talkers. But I like the fact that he was humble, and he was vulnerable. He would go in and he would be exposed a little bit, but always fight through. And there was never one boring fight from Miguel Cotto. He fought everybody that was super exciting.
Yeah. My favorite fighter of all time, Felix Trinidad.
He didn't get the same recognition as, well, they both got love, but Felix was so much more of an extrovert.
Yeah.
Cotto was more of an introvert.
Cotto,
just quiet,
he
guy.
did his talking in the ring. I spent some time with him in Puerto Rico earlier this year. We kind of looked back at his career. We chatted. He's a really great guy. And it's so, we were talking about these bizarre incidents in boxing, and he was involved in that too with Margarito. With the next fight, of course, they found, something in Margarito's gloves. So, the question's out as to what happened the first fight. I'm sure Cotto believes that Margarito was cheating. A lot of people do. So, I guess we'll never really know the true potential of Miguel Cotto had that not happened.
Yeah, that fight had to take a lot out of him with Margarito.
You know
right?
what? I want to kind of save that. Curran, would you promise to do an episode highlighting that day, that fight? That would be dope in the
absolutely.
future. Because we could go in on that one. And
yes, absolutely.
I might
There's
cry in
so
that
much
episode. So if I get off camera to get the Kleenex, don't mind me, because that fight broke my heart, man. And we definitely had to commit an episode.
His face was...
Yeah, it was tough.
There's so much that went on in that rivalry, and that first fight, of course. And I was live at the second fight we did on, broadcasting it for HBO. It was great. So when I was walking around with Miguel in Puerto Rico, the restaurant we had a giant mural, and it was just it's Cotto, landing a hard shot on Margarito in the second fight, and Miguel just paused and he just stared at it and he just said, "My greatest moment." And so obviously, getting revenge on Margarito, that meant a lot to him.
That's awesome, man. I can't wait. So we're going to definitely highlight that episode.
Absolutely.
And I would love to have you back on. I hope you enjoyed yourself. We enjoyed having you. Anything you want to plug in before we get out of here? What are you?
Well, first of all, no, thank you guys so much for having me. I'd love to be back on. Anyone who's listening, you can follow me on my personal channels. I'm at Curran Bhatia, at CurranBhatia. And you can catch me. I'm the on-air ringside reporter for Ring City USA. And I put out a lot of content. So give me a follow. And thank you guys so much.
And that is it, folks. Curran, thank you so much for your
so
time.
much.
You are the man. I can't wait to have you back on. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful weekend. And we out, man. Peace.
Take care, brother.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
Wow, that was a lot of fun. Yo, Derek, I must say, your knowledge on this particular event, because it had to do with a Riot, was significant. And props to you. Because this is the episode you want to cover, and you did your homework, Pop, and I'm impressed.
I mean, if it's violence, I'm all in. I'm all in, especially if it's televised violence, complete mayhem and chaos. I'm interested. You've piqued my interest.
What was your favorite part about the Riot?
When Galata started getting hit in the head with the walkie-talkie, I was like, oh! But it got scary, though, too, when, like, Duva was on the stretcher. Like, I thought he took one. He was like, oh! It was a scary time, bro.
Yeah, I mean, and then to see Lou Duva, like, he's such a ferocious guy, like, laid out like that. You don't see it,
Yeah. Well,
and he got that greasy white hair. It's like Vaseline in there.
Yeah.
It was like all messy.
He's pulling it out. It's Vaseline's fighters. The thing that's crazy is Riddick Bowe got his ass whipped for about 7-8 rounds. And then, but dude, I just remember the ads for that fight when I was young. I remember they used to be on the radio. Back in the day, we used to have this thing called radio. I don't know if they have it anymore, AM, FM. People were like, everything is iMusic and whatever, Spotify. But the ad was Riddick Bowe was in the ad talking shit in the ad.
What was he saying?
Riddick Bowe, this is Riddick Bowe. I'm coming back. Catch me this Saturday at Madison Square Garden when I whoop Andrew Galata. And he got whooped, but he still won.
And that was a pro Riddick, crowd.
Hell yeah, it was a pro Riddick. But there was a race riot in the stands afterwards. It was blacks versus Polish. We're not even completely done with the riot, which makes me happy, because I'll talk riots all day. Because our next guest is going to be Rock Newman, who was Riddick Bowe's manager, who was there. And Rock Newman was involved in many violent altercations, protecting his fighters over the years. So I feel like I'm going to get along good with him.
Yeah, you're one of those guys that remind me of Rock Newman because you're like racially ambiguous, and so is he. Because I don't know if he's black or white. I mean, he's just a white man rocking a dashiki.
I don't know if he's black or white either. I'm afraid to ask him.
I'll be sure to make sure you ask him that question.
I feel like Rock carries like a razor blade in his shoe. He's like one of them dudes, you know what I mean?
A flapjack.
Yeah.
All right, we out of here. Another episode in the books. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, comment, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
My man Derek, I'm your boy Sergio Chacon. We out.
You're